But at the same time, I think it is kind of cool knowing that I'm a part of a worldwide church, right? So my church is not just the people that are in Waycross, but it extends to other units in a stake, Kingsland, and then a region or an area, and then worldwide, knowing that I can go to a place in Russia, right, or England, and know that there are people practicing the same faith there. That's really cool to me.
Yeah.
We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Saints in the South, episode 255 of our Come Follow Me discussions. Welcome back. We have a special guest with us today, Mr. Snaky Snake. Was that his name? Snaky Snake?
Azrael.
Yep. His given name is Azrael, like Gargamel's cat on the Smurfs, but my wife calls him Snaky Snake, and so that's kind of become his nickname. He's a ball python.
Yep. Joe and I were we were blown away. We had never heard that Kenny had a snake, and he's had him for quite some time. So welcome.
Yeah. I can't believe y'all didn't know
the things you learn.
That's right. Never know. Well, hey, if you are new to the show, be sure and hit your subscribe button, your notification bell, and be sure and share this with anybody that you think might be interested. We like to have a good time. As a matter of fact, one of our slogans is gospel growth and good times. So that's what we hope to experience this evening. And hopefully you are experiencing that in your own life. It's good to experience some gospel growth, and it's definitely good to have some good times out there. So
that's right.
Yep.
Living the gospel is fun, man. It shouldn't be all moping around. And
that's right. It does not have to be that way.
No,
it does not have to be that way. I mean, look at Kenny. He's got a snake wrapped around his neck right now. He's having a great time.
I'm having a blast, man.
Right.
Yeah.
This is
those of y'all who are listening. You need to watch the YouTube video so you get to meet him face to face.
That's right. This is
my little buddy.
People. Some people wear feather boas around their neck. Kenny says, "No boa for me. Ball python only."
That's right. I wear a ball python. He's my accessory.
Right. Accessorize.
Well, hey, be sure and check out our Facebook group, Saints in the South, and join that and get involved in the discussion. We've also got a Saints in the South page out there. So Kenny has recently started posting our podcast to the page as well for our faithful missionaries out there serving. That's the only way that they can access the podcast. They do it through Facebook. So uploading
directly to Facebook on the page. Yeah. So they don't have to follow the YouTube link.
YouTube. Yeah. Because they can't do that. So my nephew, Elder Spencer Hutchison, who is serving in the Tucson, Arizona mission, made that request. And so shout out to you, Elder Hutchison. Hope you're doing well out there. As well as my other nephew, Elder Bryson Hutchison. And I got another nephew, Elder Dallin Hester. And then a few others out there. Got a couple of Elder Kerrs out there and stuff. So I hope everybody's doing good. Appreciate the work y'all are doing. So,
yeah, man.
Well, hey, let's get this thing started here. This week we are in Doctrine and Covenants, sections 6 through 9. The title is "This is the Spirit of Revelation." In the fall of 1828, a young school teacher named Oliver Cowdery took a teaching job in Manchester, New York, and stayed with the family of Lucy and Joseph Smith Sr. Oliver had heard about their son Joseph and his remarkable experiences, and Oliver, who considered himself a seeker of truth, wanted to know more. The Smiths described visits from angels, an ancient record, and the gift to translate by the power of God. Oliver was fascinated. Could it be true? Lucy and Joseph Sr. gave him advice that applies to anyone seeking truth. Pray and ask the Lord. Oliver did, and the Lord answered, seeking peace to his mind. Revelation, Oliver discovered, isn't just for prophets like Joseph Smith. It's for anyone who wants it and seeks it diligently. Oliver still had a lot to learn, but he knew enough to take his next step. He knew the Lord was doing something important through Joseph Smith, and Oliver wanted to be a part of it. And that's a great place to start. Oliver wanted to be a part of it. And I think we all have a desire. Well, I say we all do. A lot of people have a desire to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And Oliver wanted that. And I myself want that. It's one of the reasons that I had the idea to start the podcast. Wanted to be a part of something a little bigger. So we've been doing this for a handful of years now and taking part in spreading the gospel through a little bit of social media. So, any thoughts on that, on being a part of something bigger than yourselves? Where does that come from?
Oh, that's a innate part of human motivation. I think that's something that is almost universal to most people. Something that atheists would argue is that the reason that religion exists is because people have a subconscious drive to want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So the atheists would argue that humans have created something bigger than themselves. However, I know we see it from a different perspective, and we understand that there is something bigger than ourselves. And my belief is that the reason that is part of the kind of an innate human drive is because our Heavenly Father has put it there, because he wants us to seek him. He wants us to know him, and he wants to have a relationship with us. So we have that natural drive to be a part of something bigger, and especially when it comes to religion, to know God, to know if there is a God, and if there is a God, to understand his nature and our relationship to him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that human beings are kind of social animals, as they say. I think that's kind of an innate thing, that we don't do well being alone. Do you think there's a limit to that, though? What is it, the Dunbar's rule or Dunbar's number, where there's only so many people you can really know particularly well, and that's kind of the idea behind tribes. You might even say behind military regiments or whatever, groups, or even wards, before you split and make one ward into two wards because it's getting too big or whatever. Do you think there's limits to that?
Yeah, you talking about just the ability to connect with a certain amount of people?
Yeah. I mean, so
Yeah.
fish swim in schools and birds fly in, flocks or whatever. But do you think there's kind of a sweet spot for humans where being alone is not good, but being in a massive crowd is not good either? Or do you think the bigger the better?
No, I don't think. I think. Well, I know you can't. There's definitely a limitation to the amount of people that you can build strong relationships with. I mean, Kenny and I were talking about this before we started the show about time. There's only there's a finite amount of time, and there's so much that we have going on. I think it's what we do and how we build on those relationships, for sure there. So, but at the same time, I think it is kind of cool knowing that I'm a part of a worldwide church, right? So my church is not just the people that are in Waycross, but it extends to other units in a state, Kingsland, and then a region or an area, and then worldwide, knowing that I can go to a place in Russia, right, or England, and know that there are people practicing the same faith there. That's really cool to me.
Yeah. I think that as long as there is some kind of underlying unifying narrative. I don't think there's a limit to the amount of people that can be within a tribe, so to speak. I mean, there is, like Jackson said, there is a limit to the number of people we can have close, actual personal connections with. But even in the United States, something that's broken down is that there used to be really a lot of push toward patriotism, and there used to be this strong underlying narrative of the United States as the greatest nation on earth, and all of the patriotic stories that go along with it that united us together. And when those unifying narratives start to fall apart, that's when fractions happen and people start to become more tribal and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I think things are fractal. I think you see that in the gospel, to where it works on a smaller level, but you don't make the small thing bigger. You make more of the small thing, and then it kind of like repeats itself in big ways. And I think that's kind of how a lot of these organization things. And like Jackson was saying, it's not just the members in Waycross that make up the church. It's members in Waycross. There's some members in Brunswick. There's members in Atlanta and Birmingham, whatever. And then it's worldwide, but it's the same pattern over and over again. And I think you see that in the gospel. You see it in other places, with the military. You have squads and platoons and companies, and it goes, bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's not a company is not one giant squad. It's, multiple platoons that are made up of multiple squads, and I think that's kind of neat. And I think you see that even in nature, where things are fractal, that it's the same patterns repeating on greater and greater scale. So
good point.
Yeah.
Because if you group everything together, people,
there's no organization.
Lost in the mix.
I think it's epitomized by Jesus Christ and his crucifixion and atonement, that he didn't atone for the church. He didn't atone for some massive group of people. He atoned for you, down to the individual. And right. the ultimate fractal component is you, one. I think that's key,
Very good.
Good point.
Yep. I tell you, it's interesting. You get into these "come follow me" discussions, and you never know where they where they go. So that was good. Yeah. That was good stuff. So anything? What jumped out to y'all personally? Anything to pull from specifically? There's personal revelations. There's the how does the Spirit speak to you? How does it feel? How do you recognize the Spirit? In your personal life, sometimes it can be the still small voice, right? Sometimes it's somebody vocally speaking up and saying something, and it being a good thing, and you saying, "Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go do it." Can the Spirit speak to you through somebody else? That's the question. Can the Spirit speak to you through somebody else?
Absolutely. So ask Brody about the young man's video. I showed him a video. As a matter of fact, Jackson, you saw part of this video. Although you were putting in insulation and stuff at the time, so I don't know how much of it you were able to really hold on to or whatever. Fascinating story. I got to put it together. I got like a list of things I got to do. Like you said, there's only so much time.
Yeah.
You want me to give you a quick rundown?
Sure.
6 years ago this month, terrorists attacked the Dusit D2 hotel in Nairobi, Kenya. It ended up being 5 terrorists. The initiation of the attack was one of them blowing themselves up, suicide vest. 4 others in with AK-47s or whatever, and bombs and stuff, and just were trying to do what terrorists do. this person showed up on the scene pretty quickly, and news cameras caught this person who was a white fellow, which kind of stood out in Nairobi, Kenya. Had a chest plate on and AR rifle, and was wearing a balaclava, ski mask. And he goes into the complex while everyone else is trying to run out. And eventually he's there for so long that his mask comes off, and they were able to identify him as Christian Craighead. He was a SAS, Special Forces, British Force operator. And he just so happened to be in the area. And a friend of his was in the complex and called him and said, "We're under attack and I don't have a weapon. You got to come help me." And he said, "I'm on my way." He'd never been there before.
Wow.
Didn't know the facilities, the rooms, the layout, anything like that. He arrived, heard explosions and gunshots, and assumed that it was SWAT, Special Forces, taking action. And he asked a security guard, "Is that SWAT or security? I mean, Special Forces or whatever?" He said, "No, there's no one here. There's no one." And he said at that time he heard a woman scream and a shot go off, and that stopped the screaming. And so he said, "I'm going in." And so I just think he didn't know the place. He didn't know what he was up against, but went in anyway. And he ended up helping save over 700 people that day. But the really cool part was, at the beginning of that day, just a few hours, you rewind the clock a few hours, he had finished his training outside of town, and was headed back to town on this dirt track road. He said this road had, it was like 3 hours of walking if you were going to walk this road from this on ramp or whatever to the city. And so he had just turned onto it, and he sees this fellow who's in a business suit with polished shoes walking on the side of the road. And he said, "I did something that I shouldn't have done, that I never do. I pulled over and asked him if he needed a ride." He said, "I felt compelled," is the word he used, "to pick him up." So he did. And this guy has some small talk, and they're talking and laughing it up and stuff. At one point, the guy pulls out a dagger, which is kind of weird. But anyway, he says, "I take it by the way you're dressed, you're going into the city." And he says, "No, just drop me off at the next village." And he said, and these villages are literally African villages. I mean, they're huts and nothing. And so he thought that was really strange. And so he pulled over, though, as he was asked, and lets this guy out. And he said the guy's been very jovial and very grateful the whole time, and just laughing and joking and talking. And he said, but when he got out of the car, when his foot hit the ground, he said his face changed. And he said, it looked like someone's laughing with you, and then all of a sudden someone said something and it insulted them or whatever. Their face just went like stone cold. And he said, and his voice was different. He said, "Chris," called me by name. He said it wasn't loud, but it was deafening. He said when he called his name, he felt it in his heart. And he said, "Chris, may God bless you many times this day." And then he said, and then his face snapped out of it and went back to normal. And he goes, "Okay, thank you very much, and have a good day." And he just turns around and walks away. And he goes, "Man, that was weird." And he goes and he drove away. And he just thought, man, that was really strange, and didn't think anything more about it until a few hours later when he got the phone call from his friend. And he said he went there. He wouldn't go into detail. He's got some sort of non-disclosure. But he said when he went in there, every second counted and everything had to go perfectly, and it did. And he said he's been on maybe 1,000 door-kicking missions with Special Forces, and he said he has never performed at such a level. He said he felt like some level of superpower was unlocked that day. He was moving faster, hearing better, just everything was turned up to 11. Called a flow state never felt before. And I just think that's, you ask, can you receive revelation or inspiration or communication from a higher power through someone else? Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, That's a remarkable experience. That you can find that on the Sean Ryan show.
That's right.
That podcast episode. Do you remember what number? It's
No,
like
I don't remember.
yeah.
It's like 3.5 hour long episode. So I'll see if I
Yeah.
can snip out the neatest part.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for sure. So, so Oliver, Oliver, he meets the family, intrigued, and begins to study it out in his own mind, and then he ends up wanting to be a part of something bigger, right? He's also wanting to play a pretty pivotal role in this. He sees, I find it interesting, he sees Joseph translating, and so Oliver wants to do the same thing. He wants to translate as well, right? Which, I mean, I don't blame him. You know, I could see me being in the same
Oh, yeah.
position of being like, dude, that's pretty cool. I want to translate.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me try.
Yeah. Let me try.
Joseph, this is Mr. Oliver Cowdery. The man is half white-tailed deer. Practically ran the whole way here just to see you.
Joseph Smith.
Mr. Smith, I've come to inquire about the work which you are endeavoring to accomplish.
Oliver, I've been expecting you. Please call me Joseph.
We talked late into the night. Joseph recounted the tribulations and miracles he had experienced and how he obtained the record from an angel of God. What it must be like to experience the things you have. Where are the plates now?
They're safe.
May I see them?
For now, you cannot. I've made a covenant with the Lord to show them to no one.
But if I cannot see them, how will we work?
By the gift and power of God. You will soon learn that with the Lord, all things are possible.
In section 9, he's told, he says, "Be patient, my son, for it is wisdom in me, and it's not expedient that you should translate at this time. Behold, the work which you are called to do is to write for my servant Joseph. And behold, it is because that you did not continue as you commenced when you began to translate, that I have taken away this privilege from you. Do not murmur, my son, for it is wisdom in me that I have dealt with you after this manner." So, how do you handle that, right? How do you handle not being allowed to translate there as Joseph?
Well, I would bring up before any of that happened, in section 6, verse 14, the Lord speaks to Oliver and commends him. Basically, he says, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, blessed art thou for what thou hast done. For thou hast inquired of me, and behold, as often as thou hast inquired, thou hast received instruction of my spirit. If it had not been so, thou wouldst not have come to the place where thou art at this time." So he's basically, the Lord is speaking to him and saying, man, good job. You have inquired of me, and my spirit has guided you, and you are where you are right now because you have come to me in prayer, and you have allowed me to kind of guide you.
Right.
And in verse 15, he says, "Behold, thou knowest that thou hast inquired of me, and I did enlighten thy mind, and now I tell thee these things, that thou mayest know that thou hast been enlightened by the Spirit of truth." So, I mean, he started out pretty strong, but maybe he got a little cocky, maybe he got a little careless, but he definitely,
just wanting
at least
more.
in the beginning, his heart was in the right place.
Yeah, for sure.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago with, how many of the founding fathers, so to speak, of the Restoration, how many times they would argue quite vigorously, and in a few cases would even come to blows and stuff. But then they would forgive each other, and they would repent and then change their ways, and then the Lord would still have use for them. I mean, for instance, Oliver, this is flash forward a little bit, but Oliver leaves the church, gets excommunicated for a while, eventually makes his way back, as some of the other ones did, right? And so I think one of the things we can learn is that, one, it's making a mistake is not what is that? There's a quote Winston Churchill says about failure is not final. And do you know what I'm talking about? Have I heard that one? Anyway, but basically that we shouldn't fear so much of making a mistake that we don't strive to achieve more, to be more, to do better. And these early church brethren give us this example. I think we should have thick skin and a soft heart, to where, if we're reproached, said, hey, you did this wrong, you messed up, you're relieved of duty even, or whatever, that shouldn't push you to the point where you leave the church, or you don't help at all anymore, or whatever. And I mean, if you burn the cornbread, they might take you out of the kitchen, but it doesn't mean you can't help set up tables and chairs. I mean, there's still use for you, and just work on it. No one's perfect. Just work on it. You'll be fine. And
I don't know if it was Churchill, but I have heard the quote that if you fail at something, that means that you tried.
Now, that's a Gretzky quote. Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's right.
That's right.
One of my favorite scriptures comes from section 9 as well. Again, kind of getting back to following the promptings of the Spirit, figuring things out. 8 and 9. But behold, I say unto you that you must study it out in your mind. Then you must ask me if it be right, and if it is right, I will cause that your bosom shall burn within you. Therefore, you shall feel that it is right. But if it not be right, you shall have no such feelings, but you shall have a stupor of thought that shall cause you to forget the thing which is wrong. Therefore, you cannot write that which is sacred, save it be given you from me. Again, just kind of going back to, figuring things out and figuring what the Lord would have each of us do in our lives. And it's interesting how much we are required to study it out in our minds, and to figure things out on our own. I mean, we don't wake up every morning with the answers for the day, written out. Now it's an open book test because we have the tools. The Lord has blessed us with the tools to be able to seek and to find and receive those answers, but it's not, we don't have a cheat sheet, so to speak, that's just given to us. Makes us put in that work.
That's right.
That's right. It's kind of like Oliver, knew just enough to take, another step. It's kind of like the analogy of the flashlight, where you have just enough light to see just a couple of feet in front of you, just enough to take the next step. And so you just have to continue stepping in faith. You don't know what's going to come up in the future, but you just take one step at a time and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Till you grow your testimony enough that you got the big old KC lights on the light bar on the back of the truck, and then you can see a lot
That's
further.
right.
I found that quote by Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
And that's true. I love the beginning of that. Success is not final.
Final.
Is that what you said? Right. I mean, it's
Mhm.
There's always a new day, something else to conquer, something else to go after. And just because you've succeeded for a year doesn't mean you're going to succeed the next year. It's constant effort. And it reminds me of something I thought I had earlier today. Kind of speaking of failure or getting back up and utilizing the atonement in our lives, we may have failed today. We may have fallen short. We may not have kept all the commandments. but we know that there is tomorrow, and that we can get up and we can go after it again and try our best, right? At the same time, I had the thought today that, let's say we have the best day ever, right? We get up, we say our prayers, we exercise, we read our scriptures, we have family home evening. I mean, we knock it out of the park, right? Satan, he goes to bed that night saying, "It's okay. There's always tomorrow. I'll be
Tomorrow.
coming for you
Yeah.
tomorrow." You know, so yeah, I think he has that same thought process with us as well. You know, we've always got another chance to improve, and he's always got another chance to attack us.
And do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In
Philippians.
section 8, verse 10 says, "Remember that without faith you can do nothing. Therefore, ask in faith. Trifle not with these things. Do not ask for that which you ought not." So we can, through faith, we can do all things, but it's something to be taken seriously, something not to be trifled with. I think that's an interesting verse. You know,
Yeah,
it's kind of a warning. It's an encouragement and a warning at the same time. So basically, with faith, you can do anything. You know, so when you take your prayers seriously, whatever you ask for in faith, take it seriously, and don't be asking for things that you know you shouldn't be asking for.
Right.
It's really neat that they put this in. I mean, that it comes out of this kind of area that Oliver Cowdery is being commended for him asking to translate and seeking these things of the Lord, new gifts, essentially. I think is what he goes into detail about. Desires, righteous desires and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's that kind of cautionary, don't ask for things that you shouldn't. So that's kind of an interesting, it's funny. The gospel's always like that. It's like, well, you got to follow the Spirit.
That's right.
There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
etched in stone thing, you know? So.
Yeah. I kind of correlate this because, I mean, it's not like he's asking for riches, right? Or he's not asking for a brand new horse and carriage or something. I mean, he's asking to translate. So, that may be similar to, well, I mean, he actually may have thought, I could do a better job than Joseph. He's more learned than Joseph, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he would be more equipped to really be able to translate. He should be the one kind of fulfilling that role. Okay, so well, if we have a bishop, we may not be thinking is making all the best. I wouldn't necessarily handle this situation that way, right? So, I think I could probably do a better job than that. And you start praying for an opportunity to serve as bishop, right, or an opportunity to serve as an elders quorum president, or something in that nature, right? Because you feel like you might be able to do a better job.
Back pew driving.
Yes,
Back
absolutely.
pew driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just coined a new phrase there. I'm gonna start using that.
T-shirt. It reminds me of the "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing" hymn. There's a line, "Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be." I think that's a beautiful line. Just that no matter what you're doing, best day ever. You even mentioned exercise. You had me at exercise. I was like, well, this is fancy land. But best day ever, you're still not perfect. And so you're indebted to God's grace every day, even on your best day. And sometimes that's what happens with the learned. And then maybe that's what happened with Oliver is, like you said, maybe he felt he was better equipped or better learned or whatever. And perhaps he thought, well, I can get this, figured out. And then even day to day thinking like, more is coming from me because I've got this figured out, rather than it's the gift and power of God that this thing is being translated or that these things are being done. I think you got to always keep it in mind where it's coming from.
Yeah, that's right. got to keep that perspective. That kind of Luciferian love of intellect, something I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about, and something that I've seen in several people's lives, man. There's people that I used to watch, so when I was first coming back into the church, Kerry Shirts, the Backyard Professor. I don't know if you're familiar with him, his videos. Man, I loved his videos. He did a lot of work for the church with fair and even I think it was Farms at the time, Foundation for Apologetic Research and something. Anyway, so yeah, Kerry Shirts was amazing, man. One of the most knowledgeable people. He's read more books than I've ever even placed my hands on in my entire life. And his videos were a big part of my coming back to the church. But over time, it was really sad that I started to watch him kind of fall in love with his own intellect and started to become more and more kind of cocky and cynical about the church, and started questioning things, and little by little, and eventually to where he got to the point where he was kind of, antagonistic toward the church openly. And it is that falling in love with your own intellect. And you have to be very, very careful about that and understand that your intellect, it doesn't matter how smart you are, is nothing compared to the power of God that you have access to. And he talks about that in verse 2 of section 8. He says, "Yea, behold, I will tell you in your mind and in your heart by the Holy Ghost, which shall come upon you, which shall dwell in your heart. Now, behold, this is the spirit of revelation. Behold, this is the spirit by which Moses brought the children of Israel through the Red Sea on dry ground." So I think that's powerful. He's saying, listen, you have access to the same power. This is the same spirit. This is the same power that literally parted the Red Sea. And so this is something to be taken seriously, and something to be, we should be humble in the face of God, regardless of how smart we might feel that we are, or how capable, or how confident we are in our leadership abilities or anything.
At the same time, I like how it says, in your mind and in your heart. So it doesn't have to be completely divorced from reality, suspend all disbelief, kind of faith. Like these things happened. So there has to be a way that it happened. There has to be a place that it happened. There, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not all fairy tale land, make believe. This is real, a real record of real people. So I think it's within reason for people to be researching this stuff, to be doing excavations at different sites and looking for evidences and things like that. I don't think that crosses a line at all. And I think people that are involved in even apologetics and stuff, provided they stay humble about it, like I said, thick skin but soft heart, and they keep their, I think Jackson said, that keep your perspective aligned, then I think there's nothing wrong with that, because you'll know in your mind and your heart that these things are true. It means your mind is involved at some level anyway. So
right. And that your both your comments, it reminded me actually on one of the scriptures that I shared on one of my 60-second scripture sessions. So I shared one where talking, we're supposed to seek as much learning as we can, right? Because that's really the only thing that we can take with us. We can't take any physical possessions of any kind with us, but we do know that we will take all the knowledge that we have learned in this life with us. And so, so we're encouraged to learn as much as we can. But at the same time, in Proverbs, he says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil." So learn all that you can, but understand and remember, God knows all, and he knows best.
Right.
That's right.
You know, and that's really an interesting balance, really, if you think about it. You know, learn as much as you possibly can, because we've in the Doctrine and Covenants later on, we'll read that for the man and the woman that learns everything they can here, the greater advantage they will have in the life to come. You know, but remember, God knows all.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Very good.
Well, anything else?
Well, no, that sounds like a good place to wrap it up right there.
Okay. Sounds good. What's Snaky Snake's name again?
Azrael.
Azrael.
Azrael. Does Azrael have anything there? He or she? He, right? Does Azrael want to add anything there?
No, I think he's chilling right now. He seems to be just kind of taking a little nap.
Keep on striving.
There you go.
That's right. That's what he said.
I like it. I like it. All righty. Until next time, y'all keep on striving. From the side.
Come on.
After everything happened, after the Democrats completely like threw him under the bus, dude, the second time that he was on Peterson's podcast,
he let it fly.
He let it fly, man. He didn't hold nothing back. He was raking the Democrats over the coals the whole time. He was talking about stuff that I'm sure they didn't want anybody talking about. Like because he knows a lot. You know, his family's been deeply entrenched in federal government for years and years.
Oh yeah.
And so he knows a lot about a lot of corruption, a lot of the stuff that the Democrats have been involved in that he's never talked about because that was his family, you know. But after the way they did him, he's like, screw him, dude. Screw every one of these Democrats, man. I don't care. I'm just going to tell the truth. And he laid it. It's good, man. I would definitely recommend listening to the
go back and check it out.